The original Naugatuck Railroad was chartered in Connecticut in 1845 to be built along the Naugatuck and Housatonic rivers between Winsted and Bridgeport. Construction began 3 years later in 1848 and was completed by May 1849, with the first regular train operating on June 11th.
Trains were running here 20 years before the Transcontinental Railroad opened across the United States in 1869.
In 1887, the Naugatuck became part of the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad, better known as the New Haven. By 1958, passenger train service was discontinued. During this period of decline, the rail line lost customers and fell into disrepair. The very future of the old Naugy line was in doubt.
The Railroad Museum of New England has been here in Thomaston since 1996 to preserve the culture, the history, the heritage of New England railroads.
This magnificent 1881 train station was built by the original Naugatuck Railroad. They had been in business about 10 years and they knew they needed to establish a base further north. And it's still the same as it was. We have all the original doors and windows. This station served them very well. It was primarily a freight line, but it also had some passenger service. The last passenger train came through here in 1958. We took ownership of this property in 1996, and at that point, the building was in pretty rough shape, so it had the fire in 1992. We started with our restoration efforts. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but doing a little bit as we could. And in the last few years, we've had more of our members be involved in fixing up the walls in the interior space. We also recently gained historic status through the state, so we're now on the state register for historic properties. And we have grants that we're seeking that are going to help with the trusses holding up the roof. There's 16 of them, they're Victorian in embellishment and ornamentation, so they're pretty neat to look at. There's a lot of work still to be done, and it's going to be a process that's going to take a bunch of years, but we've got a good group that's dedicated to working on this. This is our public face, and where people come in to catch the train. People walk in the door and say, "Where's the museum?" And we know that. We really want to add more. We've got a lot of historical artifacts in our collections, and all we need to do is bring them out and have signage made and get people aware of what the history is.
Father and son team John and Barney Gramling bring their Flagg Coal steam engine, Hank, to Thomaston every year to give our visitors a special ride.
My father and I own Flagg Coal Company number 75, a 040 tank engine.
We take it to mainly tourist railroads.
We've had quite a bit of fun taking the engine to different places. We've been in 18 different railroad museums, hauling this engine around the country, giving people rides.
It's the Iron Horse, as we all learned as kids, and it's a living, breathing machine. It's probably the most alive machine that was ever invented by man. Behind me is our display track here at the Thomaston station. Most of the cars that we have on display were rescued from scrap yards and restored by the museum's volunteers. We have cabooses, we have locomotive cranes, we have box cars, tank cars, all of the things that would have been used to carry freight and passengers, we have a representative collection of. There's this milk car that was one of the last insulated cars specially built to haul milk in 40-quart cans from farm to market.
We have right now a switch engine from the 1930s. and a caboose that was from the 1960s. These are very important pieces of rail equipment in our history.
Coming up to the station, our diesel number 2203. It's actually the newest thing we have. It's from 1977, which is kind of neat because a lot of us remember these when they were new, and now they're in the museum with us. It's built by General Electric. It used to haul freight all over the Northeast. It's got about 2,200 horsepower. We're taking the train with the steam engine. John and Barney are bringing the steam engine up to Torrington. It'll be the first time there'll be a steam engine up there in 64 years. And we're using this as a press event to bring some attention to the railroad and getting some work done on the track, getting the track improved so we can run to Torrington on a more regular basis. We're involved with Thomaston, Waterbury, Watertown, and Torrington, which are the communities along our railroad. We purchase everything that we can in local communities to keep our dollars local. We have a lot of volunteers that come from the local communities, and we do our best to give back to the communities at the same time that we're explaining their industrial history to our visitors. The steam engine that John and Barney are bringing up to Torrington is really important because the steam engine attracts a tremendous amount of attention. Everyone wants to see what a steam locomotive's all about, to hear it, to see it, to smell the coal smoke and listen to the whistle. We had a fantastic turnout. People from all around town came over to get a closer look at it.
What's the response generally when you roll into town to this?
Well, the guy up here, he was, I was tired watching him. He was on a dead run down the sidewalk.
Really?
He heard the whistle and come running with a camera in hand. And of course, everybody comes running out.
Yep.
Of course.
And he looked too old to be running like that.
We have a number of state representatives and the mayor of Torrington, Ryan Bingham, State Senator Andrew Rohraback, Representative Michelle Cook, and Representative Roberta Willis. They've all been very instrumental in supporting the railroad and the improvements that need to be made to the railroad.
Ryan Bingham. And I'm Mayor in Torrington.
I'm Barney Grambling.
Barney. Oh,
Barney,
father,
Representative
son,
Cook.
brothers.
I'm Barney.
This is Representative Willis.
He's my kid. I'm not sure I always claim him.
Right.
Okay, you're the...
Representative Cook from Torrington, and this is Representative Willis. Hi.
Oh, hi there. John Gramley.
John, Andrew Rohraback, nice to see you.
I'm Barney.
Barney, nice to see you.
John and I are the ones that own the engine.
Well, thank you very much for
Thanks for
bringing us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And we are underdressed.
We're underdressed.
You're perfectly dressed for this situation.
Well, this is the only clothes I own.
We actually have 4 of these engines.
Excellent.
And 2 of them are
all
run.
steam.
Yeah, they're all steam.
I want to ride this train to Washington, D.C.
Well, if I thought if it'd help, I'd get there with you.
Thank you.
If it'd help.
Where did the engine spend the night last night?
It was in Thomaston at the station. Yeah.
And what time did you light the fire?
We actually lit it off last night, so it'd be nice and warm today. It takes a little over 2 hours to get it up and running.
You don't use Kingsford briquettes, though, right?
No, well, it burned all kinds of things. A little bit of coal, a little bit of wood, and a few Z, and you just sit around and wait for water to boil.
How much would it take from just Thomaston to here?
We probably burn 600-700 pounds, maybe at the most. Wow. I always use a rule. Yeah.
To get you to Thomaston?
Yeah.
Where does the coal, that much coal, go?
Well, we carry about a ton in the back corners of the cab, and that we can run about 25 miles on that much coal, and we just shovel it in the firebox and burn it up. And that lovely smell is part of the after effect.
And how many gallons of water are in the engine?
We're carrying about 1,200 gallons of water in a tank on the boiler, and with that we can run 16 miles if we're careful.
Yeah, we made it 16 miles.
And then you have to fill it up again.
Yeah, we need
so
water.
there must be a hose somewhere around here.
Yep.
Yeah.
The mayor is donating some water this morning.
The water company.
And we thank him for that.
I've been a huge advocate of getting our train to run all the way through.
Yeah.
And how long was your trip from Thomaston to here?
Oh, it took us about an hour. Because this engine wasn't designed to go very fast,
Right.
so
Neither were our tracks. So you're right.
10, 12 mile an hour is as fast as we like to go. And that's a nice steady speed.
Well, the engine is actually, it's an industrial engine. It was never intended to be used this way.
And you have to back it up all the way to Thomaston?
Yep.
Okay.
It goes backwards as well as it goes forward.
I was going to say, the mayor could get one and I could get the other. We could probably pivot it for you.
Yeah.
Well, if you can do that, you won't have any trouble getting elected, I can assure you. It weighs 41 tons sitting right there. Well, I think we're going to take you for a ride, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
Do we have to push it backwards?
I hope not.
All right.
We don't want to walk back.
No, does it look like I walk anywhere?
Well, does it look like we're ready to walk?
Well,
I had no idea we were actually going to get on the train. I thought we were just going to.
I'm loving it.
This caboose is one of our latest restorations. It was finished just about 6 months ago, built in 1925, a gorgeous classic wooden caboose from the Central Vermont Railway up in Vermont and New Hampshire.
How old is the...
The engine is 1930.
1930.
This caboose is 1925. It was used till about 1972 in regular service. This is what's called a cupola. And this enabled the freight train crew to look out over the train in the direction that they were traveling. They could see if there was a door that was swinging loose or maybe a bearing was getting hot and emitting smoke. And since there were no radios, the way that they could contact the head end of the train, either a flag or they had a control here, they could actually apply the brakes from the rear end of the train.
So the icebox.
Icebox here. They would usually get a big chunk of ice when they start out their run at the yards. Part of the crew supplies. There would be kerosene for the oil lamps. Then they would get a chunk of ice to put in here, and they would either have lunches or they'd have food that they would cook. They'd usually have a coffee pot going on there. There'd be stew going on there. And the pecking order was such that the rear end crew, the conductor, the brakeman, the flagman, they ate and lived in the caboose. The engine crew, the engineer, and the fireman, they were on their own. They didn't mix. It was a very interesting little hierarchy.
And was this considered to be higher end work, to be working in the back of the train, better service? Or
The engineers always like to let you know that they think they're in charge of the train, but officially the conductor is in charge of the train, and the caboose was the conductor's office. So in a way, this was sort of the headquarters. Many conductors had their own cabooses assigned to them, and they would decorate them. They'd have curtains, they'd have pictures. The stove would be polished and painted silver and all sorts of things like that. Very over-engineered, very overbuilt. And that's one of the reasons why we still have things that are 80 years old like this to still be in condition where we can restore them. There's still something left.
It's a tribute to the craftsmanship of that time.
Exactly.
For things that do last or outlast.
And that's what we try to do, is preserve not just the craftsmanship, but we also try to preserve and interpret the whole railroad culture, the men and women that worked on the railroads, that ran the trains, that did all of the skills that were necessary back then.
All of our guests rode and really had a great time. They got to tour the interior. They saw the coal stove and the coffee pot and all the oil lanterns inside. It's a real time capsule, and everybody got quite a kick out of it.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Is this exciting?
This is
Let's do
fabulous.
trade packages.
This is fabulous. This is, boy, I'll tell you, all you need is a trade.
We run this railroad and do the things that were done 70 and 80 years ago in that same way. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, today we're in typical period uniform, period costume. Engineer wears an engineer's hat. A freight conductor would wear overalls but a fedora. And
So our typical pinstriped hat with the short brim.
right, that's a typical engineer's cap. That would be worn by the engineer, the fireman, and probably the brakeman,
Right.
but probably not the conductor.
So for your hat, it's more your higher end position.
Exactly, because what I'm doing today is portraying a freight train conductor.
Right.
Thank you. We have people that, for example, when they work as passenger conductors, they have vintage eyeglass frames from the 40s that they have their new prescriptions in.
Welcome aboard.
They have period uniforms that they've had retailored.
Now, is that the hound dog pattern, that jumper, or is that?
Yeah, this was the earlier version of these, because the 1950s version were hickory striped, straight out hickory striped, but the 30s and under had this more, the finer weave in it. So,
And that was an original?
Original, yep.
And you got it dirty already too.
What we're doing from a heritage tourism standpoint, it's theater. It's the same thing as if you were at Colonial Williamsburg.
Oh, it's exciting.
It's totally cool.
If somebody would ask who the customers are when it comes to riding, I'd probably say 5 years old or 6-year-olds.
They're just absolutely amazed.
Yeah, and well, you've seen the kids, the look on their face and everything. Hey, how are you? Would you guys like to get up in the engine? Okay. Let me send you up there right like this to start with. You want to ring the bell? Pull. Whoop, now let go. Now pull again. Yeah, what do you think of that? Okay, are you going to try it? Okay, you want to blow the whistle? Okay. What do you think of that?
We had a really great amount of press coverage.
I own the steam engine here, and we take it to different places around the country, and we're here for this weekend and next weekend.
We had a couple of TV stations.
Laura Bennett, I'm with Cablevision.
Ah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. This is quite a day.
Oh, it is. It's been 64
1948.
years since there's been a steam train in Torrington.
Wow, that's amazing. That's why everyone looks so shocked, amazed.
Oh, it attracts a lot of attention.
Yeah, absolutely. It
It's a mechanical dinosaur.
Right.
So we've got our own little Jurassic Park here in Torrington today.
People love trains. Nothing like a train ride.
That's right. And we have a pretty nice one that runs out of Thomaston right now, and we hope eventually to be able to get back to Torrington on a more regular basis.
Right. And so you need more ties, right? How many?
It's just a matter of work on the track and reversing some decades and decades of decay.
Right.
And our volunteers and railroad people are pretty dedicated, but we can't do it all. We sometimes need a little bit of assistance when the capital requirements are.
Right. And the state of Connecticut owns the tracks.
They own the tracks. In the last 10 or 12 years, we've invested over $600,000 of our own money in upgrading and maintaining the line. But there are certain stretches that are going to require
more repair.
Right.
Yeah, to keep it safe.
There's a bad one. There's a bad one. There's a bad one. Bad one. Bad one.
Memory ties.
Yeah, no,
All
they're
by the memory.
They're spirit. They're with us in spirit.
And they got good ballast. And
Oh yeah, they got good ballast. They just need timber.
So just some timber.
That is kind of ugly there.
You made it up here today. The repairs just very cautiously. Is that
Well, yes, there's some areas that we take it easy over.
Right.
They're gonna walk us over a spot that looks bad, I think.
I got to see this.
if we're going to run here on a regular basis, that's going to cause a little more deterioration at a more rapid rate. So we want to get the railroad up to a state of repair where we can make the trip at, say, 25 miles an hour instead of 10 miles.
Right, okay, I see. Yeah, absolutely.
So I wouldn't say that the track is unsafe, it's just that we want to get it into a much better state of repair. It's kind of like potholes on a road.
Right, absolutely. I understand. Okay. Well, that makes sense then.
We had a couple of the newspapers.
Is this one of these things that you're hoping to get the community, the state, people engaged in the history of railroad? And
we're doing this special event today to bring more awareness to the heritage tourism that the Railroad Museum of New England provides.
We were front page news on these two newspapers.
We have to carry insurance.
What's it cost for a premium to run around? It's probably pretty good.
Oh, you're up in the $20,000 range. So this is a culvert we just repaired back in November. And that little project was over $20,000.
Everybody went for a short ride and really got a good taste of what a real old-time steam train was all about, and also what it could do for Torrington, for the whole Northwest region. They all had a fantastic time. We had the mayor up in the engine cab and ringing the bell and blowing the whistle. And
thank you very much, John, for the ride of a lifetime.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Your son's going to be very upset with you.
Don't tell him.
Okay. I'm sure glad you could come. And I hope
I'm excited. This is fantastic.
Appreciated it.
That's awesome.
I was ready to keep going. Next time you come in, I'll wear my overalls and we'll be ready to go.
Okay, well, you come back with your overalls and a long sleeve shirt and you can fire.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's a deal.
Nice meeting you, John.
Yeah,
Thank
well, you bet.
Good to meet you. Thank you for having us. And I hope we didn't get, we got a few speckles.
That's what dry cleaning for.
Good luck with that.
we were able to really get our story across and explain a lot about the railroad and the museum to both the TV and newspaper people. The main reason we went up to Torrington with John and Barney and the steam locomotive was to draw attention to the fact that we want to rehab the railroad and get the line fixed up between Torrington and Thomaston. Since we've been here in 1996, started running this railroad, we've replaced about 14,000 ties. It cost about $100 a piece once they're installed in the track. The Naugatuck Railroad is kind of unique among excursion railroads and museum railroads because we're not just a historic railroad, but we're also an active freight line. We're a Class 3 short line, and we're licensed to carry freight. And that's another reason why we want to get the track up to a good standard and be able to provide freight service between Waterbury and Torrington. One of the important things about us also being a freight railroad is it makes us eligible for rail freight improvement funds. Between Thomaston and Torrington, we'd like to get about 6,000 ties installed, and between Thomaston and Waterbury, we'd like to get about 4,000 ties installed in the track. That'll really bring the track up to a really good state of repair. At $100 a tie, times 10,000 ties, we're looking at about $1 million, and then some additional funds to put into grade crossing improvements, bring up the safety standards at our grade crossings. There's 3,000 ties in a mile. A tie lasts about 30 years. Putting in ties, it's quite a process. A tie weighs 200 pounds. It's about 8.5 feet long. They're big and awkward and heavy. We have a machine that'll put them in. But a lot of times we'll have tight spots where the machine won't work, and we'll have to dig them out and put them in by hand. We unspike the old tie.
We get new spikes too?
Yep.
And take the tie plates off. And then we pull the old tie out.
Good.
Most of the ties come out pretty easily.
Try it again. Ah.
Good.
Sometimes we get ties that just won't come out very easily with the machine, and we've basically got to hack them to death. We attack them with axes and pry bars and just really have at them. And a lot of times the top is all rotten, but down at the bottom of the tie, it's still good wood, and it's fighting us right to the very end to get it out. We have to do a little bit of shovel work to get the bed in the track, the ballast bed cleaned out, and then we grab the new tie with the machine, and we slide it in sideways. Get it up nice and tight to the rail. Set the tie plates. And then we come along and we drive the track spike. What sustains this museum is our volunteers, the dedication of our volunteers and the hard work and the effort that they've put into this place and making this place what it is. We're always looking for new volunteers, people that are interested but aren't necessarily experienced. We will teach anybody the skills on how to run a locomotive, how to work on track, how to restore rail cars, how to interpret history. At the end of a day, they can look back and see that a stretch of track has been repaired, that a coach has new steel welded into it, that a locomotive has a new paint job. It's the satisfaction of doing a job and having that job appreciated that keeps our volunteers coming back and doing all the hard work that they do.
A handful of dedicated, passionate individuals devote their time, talent, and energy to ensure that today's generation and generations for years to come will understand, appreciate, and experience firsthand the engine that helped create America, the railroad.